All right, guys, here is my deck. It is just a little under a year old. It did sit out this past winter. The wood is cedar. Today, I'm going to be using the Restoradeck system to clean and then brighten the deck before we go in with some stain. And to do that, you need this pump sprayer, and then we also have our pressure washer here. Like I said, the first part in this two-step system is to clean your deck. And so you take that first bag there, like I showed you, that red bag, and that contains this like grainy mixture that you then mix with water, and you mix that all together and then you put in your pump sprayer. And so I sprayed about 4 boards at a time, and then I would go and clean. So here you can see me just kind of scrubbing away at the deck, and then at the end of this you're going to see that I've kind of accumulated this dirty grime stuff at the edges, which was a little difficult the way that my deck is constructed. It's a little hard to reach these kind of outer edges, and so it was hard because I had this brush, that I was using, and it was a little bit more difficult to reach those outside edges. But so I did have it piling then along at the end. Eventually, I will rinse that off then at the end. It does say in the directions that you want to keep your surface wet as you're doing this, so you want to continuously spray it with that solution as you're cleaning it. And it does say approximately 15 to 20 minutes, just keeping that area again wet with the cleaner solution, and then you're going to thoroughly scrub. And so that's making sure that's really penetrating into the wood, making sure it's getting all of that gross stuff, off that top outermost layer of the wood. And then eventually you will rinse all that off either from a hose or a power washer, pressure washer, just making sure that you're using the appropriate setting on your pressure washer, the lowest that it has, so that you're not damaging that wood. As you can see, there's some white spots or gray spots that you'll see on the wood. These are spots that didn't quite get scrubbed off with the brush, and so what that means is basically the stain won't be able to penetrate those spots. So what I had to do next isn't necessarily going to happen for everyone, but I did need to go back in. I saw online that using a low grit of sandpaper with your sander, you can give your deck a light sanding to get rid of those spots. And so just because this was already going to be such a time-consuming project, I wanted to make sure that I did it properly. So I did go in and pretty much sand everything to try and get those, graying spots away, so that it did give a nice even coat with the stain then whenever I did eventually go in with it. So here you're going to see me just kind of sanding away, and that left it with like a nice finish. Again, those kind of under the railing parts were difficult to reach, so I just did my best to kind of work around those. This was very time consuming as well, obviously an extra step that wouldn't be needed if I would have been able to do that first step properly. I think it's a little bit of a learning curve to do the cleaner, as well as I was just doing it by myself. So I had to be mindful of like how long it was sitting on each of those. It is a project. Again, this is a long time consuming, going to be at least a weekend, if not 3-day project. This is after I sanded, cleaned, obviously you can see I have my broom there, got all of those extra little dust particles off of the deck, getting ready to apply the brightener. Okay guys, quick update. We are on day number 2 of the deck restoration. So I just sanded the entire deck. You can see just with the sanding, it is looking really nice. There's still a few white spots here and there, and I'm hoping that just with the brightening that's going to be taken care of. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So you can see right there, it didn't quite get clean. But so this is where we are after sanding the entire thing, including the top part. And I think that it already looks pretty good. Now I am using step number 2 in the Restoradeck system, and so this is the brightener. And so I just took my measuring cup and I just did a cup of the brightener to a gallon of water, and so I'll mix that up and then I'll put it in that same sprayer that I used yesterday. And so what it tells you to do is wet the entire deck, and then you use your pump sprayer and generously put that all over the entire deck. And so I've never done this before. I'm kind of just winging it as I go and just hoping that it turns out. So far we've had good luck, even though yesterday we worked on this thing for 6 hours cleaning it, which was not really how I wanted to spend my day. Here you can see me, I am starting to go in with the brightener. The scrubbing is unnecessary if used after the cleaning or a stripping. Then you just let that sit there for 5 to 10 minutes, keeping wet with the additional solution if necessary. And it says start from the bottom and then work your way to the top. It says it needs to be rinsed for 20 to 30 minutes, making sure that there's no soap suds, anything left on there. Here you can see this is after the brightener. I'm not gonna lie, the brightener was probably the worst part of this entire experience. We do live in a townhouse, and so we have very limited space to work with, and especially because there's a pergola on the top, and we had, at this point, I believe our neighbors were outside, so we're trying to hose off the top part of this without getting water everywhere and on them and their little girl. And so it was really, really annoying. If you have a home where you can spread out a little bit more, I'm sure it would be a more pleasant experience, but for us it was very, very annoying. We're getting ready to stain. We have the Armstrong Clark Natural Tone Wood Stain, a couple different brushes. We also have this to do the floor. Here's what the deck looks like before. We just tested it for the moisture content and it's below 20%, so we're good to go. How excited are you?
Stoked.
Okay guys, so a quick update. We finished, well, not finished, but we got a majority of the staining done yesterday. We have, on the other side of that gate, we have steps that we need to finish, and then on the other side of here, that needs stained. You can see the difference of this to that pool right there that is not stained. And then a couple more spots, but as you can see, it's raining today. Like I mentioned before, I'm using the Armstrong Clark stand. It was probably like about 8 hours ago that we stained. And so with, as you can hear, it's really raining. So I'm a little worried. It does say that you need to wait like 24 hours or so after to get it wet. However, on their website it says 3 to 4. There's a lot of like conflicting opinions on how long to wait until it can be wet. So at this point I had reached out to Armstrong Clark because I was extremely worried that the entire thing was going to be ruined. We were going to end up with streaks and everything because of my silliness and not, you know, checking the weather or checking it closely enough. I had been looking at the weather, but this had just been done over so many days, and I think I just got carried away and wanted to stain right then. you know, hoping, and maybe it wasn't even that high of a chance of rain, but so I did end up reaching out to Armstrong Clark and asking what they thought, you know, what I was going to be left with at the end of the day, given that it was raining. And they replied super, super fast, just 7 minutes later, and said, no need to add more, and more is not always better. Just leave it as it is. That stain can take a rain with 4 to 6 hours of applying. Just like anything else, I think that your success with staining a deck is going to be all in your prep. So I would definitely recommend looking into the Restore a Deck and just following the instructions there. I know I didn't go too into depth with exactly like the mixing and everything, but it is all very clearly laid out on the back. I just followed those instructions directly because, like I said, I'm not a pro at this at all. It was my first time staining a deck, but they made it super, super easy. So here's a quick before and after. I would definitely recommend the Restore a Deck system plus the Armstrong Clark stain. I just love the color. I think it did awesome. I was really impressed with the fact that it did rain and it still held up and it still looks great. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them below. And if not, I'll see you in my next video. Bye, guys.